Hello, everybody. How are you? 10:41 p.m. here in the City of Angels, leaving Redondo Beach, California. In the dark. How are things going? Hey, very interesting podcast that you should check out. The Bob Lefsetz, Lefsetz podcast. Bob Lefsetz is basically an expert on music, the music industry, and he is in this particular podcast that I listened to recently. He's interviewing John Dick, who is a data expert, works for a data company. And they're talking about interesting and quirky, data facts, fun facts. One of them is shorter people go to live concerts less than tall people. Now that's kind of interesting. Here's another one. And this is. I know you can't see me, but just enjoy this. Enjoy not looking at my face. Here's another fun data fact. Millennials. I'm gonna have to check this one out, but I think it's millennials tend to go to rock. Tend to throw rock first in rock, paper, scissors. Millennials tend to throw rock first in playing rock, paper, scissors. If you're from outside of the United States or maybe in your country they don't play rock, paper, scissors, basically it's a game where you go 1, 2, and then you throw the scissors with your middle finger and your index finger, paper where you just keep your hand flat, or rock where you ball your fist up. And the way it works is paper covers rock, rock smashes scissors, scissors cut paper. So, so you win or lose based on whatever you've thrown. Ties are a rethrow, I think. So if you're playing that game against millennials, they will tend to throw rock more often than the other two, as I understand it. I'll check that data point. Interesting. Millennials go to bed earlier, get up earlier, and drink less than baby boomers. That's another fun data fact. This is from John Dick, a data expert on the Bob Lefsetz podcast that I'm listening to. He said it's a fallacy that millennials don't drive cars, don't like cars, buy less cars. He said, yeah, when you're 23, 24, 25, maybe you don't drive a car, but when you get to be older and maybe have kids, get married, have kids, you need a car. You need a car to drive them around, take them to soccer practice. So he said it's, he calls it a hyperbolic conclusion about what millennials are doing. That's John Dick's quote. Hyperbolic, kind of like that, hyperbolic conclusions. But having sold advertising for a very long time, I know that they make generalizations about every demographic. For years, the core, maybe it still is, core audience demographic for advertisers was adults 25-54. Well, come on, there's a big difference between an adult, a 25-year-old adult, and a 52-year-old adult. But he said what is true about millennials is their digital connectivity is more advanced than baby boomers. And that seems to follow, that seems like common sense. Younger people definitely are more comfortable with technology than older people. It's just the way it is. Except for me. I'm more comfortable with technology than most millennials. Let's put it that way. Oh, man. But it's very interesting. It's interesting what he was saying about research and data and millennials. Like this myth that you can't say negative things to millennials at work, or they're going to quit, or they're going to cry. And he's like, come on, that's not true at all. These are just stories that evolve from, baby boomers basically becoming the guy that saying, get off my lawn, You know what I mean? They become, what else? All right, here's another fun fact. He says it's a fallacy that Donald Trump uses Twitter to talk to the American people. He said that's a fallacy because he said America's not on Twitter. It's a very small percentage, especially among his following. So he doesn't care if America's on Twitter. He's using Twitter to talk to the media. And the reason that he tweets in the middle of the night is because he's setting the media, he's telling the media what they're going to talk about the next day. See what I mean? It's very interesting. And again, that's the opinion and insight of John Dick, a data expert on the Bob Lefsetz podcast. Interesting. He's saying even as traditional media is down, the one thing that has gone up is readership of political blogs. Interesting. Which doesn't bode well for quote-unquote objective media outlets, because people don't want objective media outlets. They want something that reflects their beliefs. And that makes sense. One thing you learn when you learn advertising is, you're going to be much more successful preaching to people's beliefs than trying to get them to change their beliefs. So that's why Russians and other people are so successful and possibly are still so successful on Facebook. Riling up the American populace, is they were just reflecting back the beliefs of core populations. You know what I mean? They learn what certain demographics believe, then they amplify those beliefs back to them and get support for their own page or group or post or whatever it is, or a position or product. That's all marketers are really doing. So when people say, even in sales, I've been in sales all my life. You're going to be much more successful in sales if you just sell to somebody. For example, I sold advertising. I remember when I was a young buck, I tried to get these people to change their beliefs. I called in this one tire store for years. Well, not years, for a long time, a year or two at least. Trying to get him to change his belief that he should advertise more. The thing that you want to do is find the people that are already advertising and sell them on your offering, your TV station, your radio station, your shopper, whatever it is advertising you're selling, because it's going to be much easier to sell somebody that already is advertising than to try to persuade somebody to start advertising. They're just, because they already have the belief that advertising is worthwhile and you don't have to convince them. And vice versa. When the Russians tried to, weaponize Facebook, which they did. They didn't try to get you to change your beliefs, whether you're conservative or liberal. They just created posts that that you would agree with right away. Maybe I'm stating the obvious, but I don't think everybody understands that. So that's a very interesting thing that he's saying about political blogs skyrocketing in popularity. Whereas traditional media, much of which tries to be quote unquote objective, is on a downturn. Now, I also think that's overblown because we're still a mass media, we're still a mass market. I know, niches are the way. Niches are the way to find your riches and niches. There's riches and niches, or niches, however you want to say it. But many products still need to reach a mass market, and the way to do that, still today, the best is on television, radio, traditional media, billboards, things that reach a mass audience. So it's the death of television, for example, is severely overblown. In fact, television has gone up, and the television viewing has gone up in recent years. So anyway, very fast, very interesting, all the changes and what he was saying about millennials and how Trump uses Twitter. And if you get a chance, really listen to that podcast. Again, it's called the Bob Lefsetz podcast, Lefsetz. And really, if you're into music in any way, especially if you're a boomer, you would be interested in his email newsletter. You really would. He's very, very good writer and has been around the music business, and you'll really enjoy it. So there you go. 2 recommendations: the Bob Lefsetz letter, and then the Bob Lefsetz podcast, which is new as of 2018, and specifically the episode where he talks to John Dick, a data expert. And but I also listened to him interview. Is it Cheryl Manson? Am I saying her name right? Cheryl Manson from Garbage, the band Garbage. And he interviewed a young woman who's a social media manager of social media at a a UTA, United Artists agency, UTA agency. Am I saying that right? Not United Artists. What am I saying? UTA, a talent agency. She's the head of social media. Very fascinating. I can't remember her name. I'm sorry. Even though I just listened to it 2 days ago. Yeah, there you go. Bob Lefsetz podcast, Bob Lefsetz newsletter.